Welcome along to episode 5 of Football Thunders, and with us on this podcast we have Dan Finch.
Hello, everybody.
And Ryan Scott.
Welcome, everyone.
Can we get this out of the way first? Martin Braithwaite. Who knew he was that good? We slaughtered him last week.
It's Spain. I'm not judging.
He scored 2 goals for Barcelona.
I could score 2 goals if I'm being assisted by Pedri and Griezmann and Dembele. Let's see if he leaves Barca and goes to a team and still does it.
Messi was the problem all along. It was all Messi's fault.
He'd made a right Messi of it, hadn't he? Right, let's look at the results from the Premier League season. I think the biggest shock, surely, has to be the Man City Tottenham result, isn't it? I mean, let's deal with that one first. Tottenham without Mr. Kane, and Man City. Well, they just didn't do it. Ryan, do you want to go first on this one?
This one actually didn't surprise me because, from what if what I've read is correct, City have never scored, let alone won, at the new Tottenham Stadium every time they've played there.
They've only been there a year.
What I think it's something like 4 games or something against
Tottenham.
Tottenham.
They've been a few times and they can't beat them there.
All right, okay, yeah, carry on.
And Tottenham have always done quite well without Harry Kane anyway. They're certainly a more dynamic team without him. I think maybe we might have underestimated Tottenham a little bit in our pre-season predictions.
So are we thinking that Harry Kane makes them a bit one-dimensional? Is this what you're saying?
I think because, I wouldn't say necessarily one-dimensional, but because so much of their play is focused through Harry Kane, expecting him to both score and create, besides Son, you don't necessarily see much more from the other players. Like Lucas Moura in that game was a beast. He was absolutely fantastic. And the whole front three for Tottenham hitting on the counter-attack were quick and they were decisive. So it worked.
Excellent. Yep. Dan, your view of the Man City Spurs game?
Yeah, I think Ryan just made the point about how good the Tottenham front three was without Kane. But I seem to think that's because of the counter-attack ability that they have. They've managed to break so fast. And also, like, the huge shout-out needs to be given to the Tottenham back four. Tanganga was fantastic. Reguilon was amazing. Even Davinson Sanchez was good. Eric Dier didn't make a mistake, which,
that's unusual,
congratulations, mate.
Yeah.
Well done. And I was quite impressed with how Nuno sent them out because they did the job on Man City.
Tanganga looks. I mean, he's been around for a couple of seasons, in and out. Do you think he's going to get a good run under Nuno? And he looks a good prospect, doesn't he?
They were saying on Sky Sports that the reason Tanganga was picked was for his defensive abilities. If they're playing a more a side where they're expected to have the ball more, they'll play Aurier. Apparently, that's what Sky was saying. That the reason Tanganga was picked was because he's a defender rather than a wing back.
Ryan,
I think Dan's just touched on something as well. I think maybe Nuno's not going to get the credit quite yet that he deserves. I think he's got the potential to make Tottenham a more solid side than they have been, make them a bit more steelier, because we've seen before that you can get through Tottenham quite easily. So I think he's sort of focusing on bringing a solidity to them first, and then we'll see a more expressive style of play going forwards.
Excellent. But so good start for Tottenham, bad start for Man City. Does it highlight the fact that they don't have a proven goal scorer?
Yeah, for me, I think watching the game, they started with Ferran Torres through the middle, and he just never seemed to be anywhere. And when the ball was falling in the box, if Grealish or Sterling or Gundogan were making the passes and it got in the middle, there was just never a City player there. They took him away, brought on Jesus, but put Jesus wide. That didn't work. That still did. The only person who actually looked like creating for City was Mahrez, and there was just no one in the box to finish any of the balls in.
Now, while we're talking to Man City, rumours are they're looking at someone other than Harry Kane at the moment as an alternative in case they don't get Harry Kane. And also, to throw another little thing into the pot, reading reports today that Robert Lewandowski would like to leave Bayern Munich. Now, Man City, how much would they pay for Robert Lewandowski? And
Bayern have said they want 100 million. So that's
30,
that's what you pay.
Is he 33?
Yeah, but he's like a fine wine. Every year he gets better. Lewandowski at 75% is still a 30-goal season.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, Ryan.
I think talking about that, I think you can't pay £100 million for a 33-year-old, no matter who it is. I don't think you're paying, even if it was Messi and you could get Messi for £100 million, you just can't. Maybe Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo might justify the outlay because of the shirt sales and the sponsorship deals, maybe. But someone like Lewandowski, you just he's if it had been two years ago, I think you could justify it. I think now you can't. Going back to City's performance very quickly at the weekend, I asked you guys last week whether City needed Grealish or whether that £100 million should have gone on Kane. And I know it's only one game, but Grealish is a great player, but I wasn't sure whether City needed him then. I'm still not convinced they need him now. And I'm a bit concerned, and I know Pete will probably get this reference, but Dan might not. I'm worried for Jack that we might get a bit of Faustino Asprilla syndrome. A great player that comes in, does well, but upsets the apple cart, and the tactics go out the window as a result.
Another one I would give you is one Sebastian Veron as well, who was touted as, and he's a great midfield player, just didn't work in English football. I think when Grealish is on Grealish's side of things in his defence, and I can see the parallels, but one game, it's a bit early, but I will say he's used to the rough and tumble of the Premier League, and I think under Guardiola, I think he'll just get better and better, and I don't have too many worries there. I don't think he'll be like Asprilla. I don't think he'll be like Varane. I think he'll do a job. Whether or not he starts every game, isn't it? Even here or there, the size of the fee doesn't matter or your reputation doesn't really matter to Pep Guardiola at all. Back to Lewandowski. 220 games for Bayern Munich since 2014. 204 goals. I would take 2 seasons of that for £50 million a season all day long if I'm after the league. I think, and the Champions League. I think that's well worth it. I mean, you look at shirt sales alone will be a huge amount, and around the world, not just in Manchester but around the world. I think if Guardiola could, I think he would. I think he would prefer to have Kane because he's going to get more time. Playing, he's going to get more. He can, if he gives him a 3 or 4 year contract, he's going to see that contract out. And Rob Lewandowski, you're going to give him a 2-year contract, nothing more, really, are you, Ryan?
I'd asked you both this question.
He's full of questions tonight, isn't he?
Would you rather, if you were both Manchester City manager, would you rather spend £100 million on Lewandowski for this season, or wait for 12 months and sign Haaland for 70 when his release clause comes in?
Now that, but I will couch that by saying I would want an assurance from Haaland that he's going to sign for me before I make that decision. I would be talking to Haaland's people and say, look, we'll wait a year. Will you come to us in a year's time? Haaland's going to have the choice of any club in the world, and it's not going to be. Who's going to pay him the most money? Who's going to pay him the most money is going to be PSG. The big thing. PSG, well, yeah, PSG, because they'll unload someone, Neymar, or someone. They'll unload Mbappe. You think they'll unload Mbappe? But Mbappe won't go to Bayern Munich, will he? He'll be going somewhere.
He'll go to Madrid. Supposedly, he's only got a year left on his deal, and he won't sign a new one. Supposedly.
So that they might sell him now. I mean, if that happened, if Madrid came in and bought him now, then all bets are off, aren't they? Because suddenly. I think with 12 days of the transfer window to go, a lot of stuff could happen. If as Dan's saying, Mbappe's contract is up next season, PSG are not going to let him go for nothing, are they? That's just not business sense. That doesn't make business sense. They're paying an absolute fortune in wages for Messi. And in terms of financial fair play, there's a laugh. Balancing the books by selling Mbappe would do them the world of good. Lewandowski to PSG?
No, if I'm Man City, I'm going back to Ryan's original question. If I'm Man City, I'm going for Lewandowski. Get it in. Make sure you have it right now. It's win now. You're Man City. You're in win now mode. You want to win as much as you can now. Because is Guardiola going to be there in 2 years? If he wins the Champions League, I could see him saying, "Oh, I'm done now. I'm going to go somewhere else."
All right.
Because after that, he's won everything.
The other player that they're looking at is Vlahovic, isn't it? Vlahovic, Serbian international, Fiorentina, and he's up for 80 million at the moment. And
Never even heard of the name.
Wolves.
Oh, yes, I have.
Then some of the other transfer news, Wolves are expecting Tottenham to try and get Adama Traore if Kane joins. So
For
maybe
40 million.
it looks like Tottenham possibly preparing for life without Harry. It only takes one move to happen, and then the domino effect happens. We've seen it before.
I on the Harry Kane thing, I said earlier in the earlier pods, I don't think he's going anywhere. I think he's shot himself right in the foot on this one. And I think Daniel Levy's dug his heels in, and I think he's going to make him wait a year.
No, I think Daniel Levy will take the money, a reduced amount, and get a shot of him. Daniel, I think they're already preparing for life without Harry Kane. I said it a couple of weeks ago. I said I think Harry will be gone, and I stand by that. There's 12 days, and all it takes is one transfer to go through, and then things can happen in the transfer market. I still think Harry Kane will leave.
I agree. I did and was on the same side of the fence as Ryan. However, the more that goes on and the longer we go, I would not be shocked if a deadline day move. If Tottenham can find a replacement, I wouldn't be shocked to see Harry Kane move.
Right, last one on this one, Ryan, before we move on.
All I will say, just going back to the Man City thing briefly and talking about who they could bring in now. If I'm looking to spend money as Man City manager, I think I'm going to go for someone like Lautaro Martinez at Inter Milan instead of £100 million on Lewandowski. There's a massive age difference. You could probably spend less on Martinez, and I'd argue you probably get more quality over the deal from him than you would Lewandowski.
There is it's a gamble though, isn't it? Because it can take players some time to settle down in the Premier League. You buy Harry Kane, you're getting a player who knows his way around the Premier League. That's my opinion. Right. Let's look at the other results. I mean, we can gloss over Brighton, Burnley. I mean, that could have been a draw, a 0-0 draw for all I know. But, I mean, there's no big... Either one of those teams could have won that. Everton, Southampton, again, two teams that are fairly average. And I don't think there's any... Because I'm going to try and concentrate on the results that may be a bit of surprise or have an impact. Leicester 1, Wolves 0. No surprises there for anyone?
No.
Dan?
No, sorry. Just to go back to the Everton game really quickly. I was really intrigued to see. I can't remember if I mentioned it on the pod. If Southampton took the lead, would the fans turn on Rafa straight away?
Yeah.
But it seemed the atmosphere seemed quite good, and obviously Everton got back into the game. And no, I don't think anyone's shocked that Leicester beat Wolves. Leicester are going to be, as we said, comfortable top 5, aren't they?
Yeah.
So it wasn't a shock.
Watford Villa, 3-2 home win for Watford. And I think I said Villa losing Grealish could be a big thing for them. And as we've seen with big clubs, when they lose their talisman, for some clubs, when they lose their talisman, it can send them into a bit of a dive. So how Villa react this weekend is important. I think they need to get back onto winning ways. I know it's only the first game of the season, but you need to nip these sort of things in the bud quickly, Ryan.
Yeah, that can happen, but I think it's just a case of finding a new attacking chemistry for Aston Villa, because everything basically went through Grealish last time around.
Well, this is why I think they could struggle. This is why I don't think they're going to be anywhere near where they are. I think they're not going to have an easy time, because that chemistry isn't something that happens overnight. Or sometimes it is, and it just clicks, and other times it's just not there. And when you lose, they've lost such a huge part of that jigsaw, and all the pieces fitted around that. You've now got to fill that gap that Grealish has left, and still be getting results. Not easy to do, Dan.
I also think if you look at Villa's top front 4, almost, that's not going to be the front 4 that you probably see for Villa throughout the season. Danny Ings obviously will be their striker, but Ashley Young and El Ghazi wide of Buendia. I wouldn't be surprised to see Leon Bailey, and obviously Ollie Watkins, who played sometimes off the wing at Brentford, could do the same. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was Ings, Watkins, Bailey, and Buendia, where obviously... And I think they had Marvelous Nakamba in the midfield as well. I don't think he'll start much.
Great name. Ryan.
And you're also forgetting about Traore, who was quite a good player for Aston Villa last season. I think they will gel. I think they might have a rough start, but I think they'll pick up quite quickly.
Okay. Let's look at right candidates. I think we were agreed on. Norwich got done 3-0 by Liverpool. No surprises there at all, is there? Really?
Nope.
No.
They just didn't look. I watched the game and I just never thought Norwich were. I know Liverpool are a good side. They had Van Dijk back, Joel Matip, but just Norwich just looked like they offered absolutely nothing.
And Jota's he's got his first goal of the season for Liverpool, which is good news. Looking at the other ones, Crystal Palace, Chelsea, that was predictable. Do you think?
Yep.
Pleasing, possibly.
Very pleasing. I was very pleased.
Especially
watching that Charlton were playing and they're not doing well, so at least I was able to watch the Chelsea score just pile up. Which was interesting. I'm really looking forward to seeing how they play with Lukaku, because they actually went with a 5 at the back and with Timo through the middle. So it'll be interesting to see how their front three.
I had the rather joyous honour on Saturday evening on the way home from the game that I'd been to. I was stood at the station and I was chatting to a Tunbridge Angels fan who didn't know the score between Chelsea and Palace, and she was a Palace fan. And so I took a great deal of delight in pointing out that not only had her team lost 5-1, but a league team had lost 3-0. I didn't have the heart to tell her who I supported because I thought we'll leave it there. Ryan.
I was actually surprised it was only 3-0, to be honest, because obviously I predicted Palace to go down. And the other thing I will say is we talked a lot about the Chelsea's defence, and then this lad Trevor Chalobah comes from nowhere and stores a screamer. So I was like, what's that all about?
And what an emotional reaction at the end when he scored, because I think it was his mum. He was thinking about his mum. Because his brother's, where's his brother at? Is he at Watford? Watford, that's it. And Trevor's been at Chelsea for a long, long time without really bothering the first team, and suddenly he starts and he's got an absolute worldie right at the end. Put the icing on the cake for Chelsea fans and the odd Charlton fan. And yeah, an emotional response to that first ever league goal. And Chelsea, this week added a little striker to their stable. You know, the little fella Lukaku. Ooh, watch him go. Do we think?
Dark horses. I think I've seen a lot of people already write them off.
No.
Bonkers to me. I think they're right up there.
The only thing I have, and we discussed this last week, was for Chelsea is possibly at times the centre of their defence worries me a little bit, because everything else I think's there. Ryan's going to disagree because if he agrees with us that Chelsea are in the top 2, Man United aren't. So yeah, we're waiting for this. Come on, Ryan.
I'm not sure if about the top 2 stuff, but I said it last week, and I'm intrigued to see how Lukaku fits into this system, because I said it last week, they're going to have to change the system that they're currently using to accommodate Lukaku. They can't do what Mourinho did and get him to hold up play, because it's not Lukaku's game.
No, I don't. I don't think the coach there is that stupid that he would expect him to. It's you know, I don't think he's that daft to do that. I think he'll want the team to play he's brought him in to score goals, and the only way you're going to get him to score goals is by playing to his strengths. Yeah, just don't lump the ball up to him.
I'm more interested in Timo Werner's role, because I wonder if Werner will shine playing off Lukaku rather than being the star man, if he can offer more as the man backing up Lukaku and coming in from either wing, which is assumingly what they'll do.
Yeah, and we've seen it before. Because I've never been taken with that when you get someone who's a forward, and I've seen it time and time again, where someone is a forward and they're out on the wing. I've never, until I started playing Football Manager, really grasped that one. But playing the Football Manager, I suddenly realised, because I used to watch Charlton, and Jonathan Johansson has scored 20-odd goals in his first season. He's playing on the wing the next year, and I'm thinking, Kirbishley, what are you doing? But I can understand what he's doing now, because that man is... so we'll see what happens. Right, let's look at this one game left that we haven't looked at, and I've saved this one till last because I thought it would be a hell of a lot closer than it was. with the rivalry between these two clubs, Manchester United and Leeds United. The rivalry between those two clubs normally is astonishing. Oh, well, we will talk about Brentford as well, but we'll come to that one in a moment. But Manchester United versus Leeds. I mean, Man United go 1-up, and then Luke Ayling scores an absolute perler and a beautiful goal as an equaliser. And then after that, I mean, I wasn't watching the game. I was seeing Twitter. Fernandes, and it was just like Pogba, Pogba. I'm just like, what is going on? 5-1. I don't think anyone could have predicted that, could they? You're not going to claim, yeah, Ryan, here we go. Look at this. Hold on. Can you smell it, Dan? Bullshit.
No, I agree. If you look at Manchester United's game against Leeds last year, they pelted them last year at Old Trafford. So I'm not shocked that they pelted them again this year either.
The problem with Leeds is the style of play that they have just lends straight into Manchester United's hands, because they're all energy, but they're so open that if you can just move them around a little bit, you can get in at them. And that's all we did. We had Luke Shaw bombing down the left. He was barely defending. Pogba come inside.
Pogba was
to play. I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has accidentally stumbled across the best role for Pogba.
Do you think he's accidentally? Do you think?
No, I think it was planned.
Let me finish here. Let me finish, because here's the thing. They were for the last several years under different managers. They've tried to put him in as a midfielder. Pogba is what we would call a roaming playmaker. He needs the space to be able to go away and do what he wants, and other people will cover for him. So when Marcus Rashford got injured last season, Solskjaer tried him out on the left and had Luke Shaw doing the wide work and Pogba free to come in and do whatever he wanted. And Pogba would take away a fullback or a winger to make room for Shaw. I think over the closed season, I think they've perfected that now. And I think Pogba has now found the license that he can, knowing that he's got Fred and McTominay to do the donkey work behind him, and that Shaw is going to plug the gap that he leaves when he comes on the inside.
And you think that's done, but they've done that? He stumbled across that by accident. I'd give him a bit more credit than that, to be honest. What I will say is Fred, who we slaughtered last week, absolutely ripped him a new one, didn't we? And he's gone and scored. That was always going to happen, wasn't it? Let's be honest.
He can score one, but I've also seen Jimmy Traore lift the Champions League. So therefore,
good point.
You can say what you want. You can score. I watched Bradley Pritchard score a ton in the Championship. Like, not a ton, but score. He wasn't at that level. He played well. Well done.
Fred for me is another one of those players that can he can either surprise you by being really good, or he can surprise you by being god awful. There's just no in the middle with Fred.
Well, I think he's got a touch of the Andy Fires about him. He's going to end up being remembered as god awful, to be honest. You have to excuse us with that. With Jimmy Traore, sorry, and Andy Fired players that strike into, just rock out, just ruined our lives. They're just some of the most ineffective footballers I've ever seen in my life. Carry on.
One thing I will say is I actually felt a little bit sorry for David De Gea, because I was listening to the match on TalkSport, and they criticised De Gea for Luke Ayling's goal. And I can't understand where they're coming from that. They were like, he didn't stretch far enough, he didn't try hard enough. I don't think anyone's stopping that shot.
No, to be fair, it was a fairly... I mean, I am a critic of David De Gea, as you'll know from last week, but I don't think there's not many keepers that would have stopped that. That was an absolute thunderbolt. Let's have a laugh. I mean, a look at Arsenal versus Brentford now. The first Premier League game of the season. And, well, some people were surprised by it, but we were quite last week. The business they've done is £100 million, and they bought three players in, and the players they've bought in at Arsenal are really an average central defender from Brighton who's yet to prove himself. They're signing Aaron Ramsdale from Sheffield United, are they? Is that right?
Yeah, I've heard that one.
It looks like a done deal.
That one baffles me. Sorry, that one absolutely baffles me. He did okay at Bournemouth, and then he went to Sheffield United, and they got relegated, and he wasn't very good. And now for some reason he's going to Arsenal for 20 odd million quid. baffling.
I think it's simple as they need a backup keeper, and he kicks towards homegrown.
Yeah.
Because they're going to start Leno. He's homegrown for the Europe. For any, they're not in Europe this year, but they'll be thinking that they will return to Europe.
Yeah, that's a fair point. That's a fair point.
It's a free. The backup keeper is always a stab at the dark. If you get a homegrown goalkeeper, that's 1 point outfield that you can give to someone else.
Yeah,
I understand what they're trying to do with the homegrown. It does. I've always firmly believed, no matter what country you're in, you need a backbone of players from that country. So if you're in Spain, you need a backbone of Spanish players. If you're in England, you need a backbone of English players. And that's something Arsenal haven't had for a very long time. My concern is I don't think they're doing it with the right quality of player.
Yeah.
I think he's not as bad as people make out.
He's just not a first choice goalkeeper in the Premier League.
But the other thing is, what British homegrown player are you going to get to back up a keeper for that money?
Easily. Sam Johnston from West Brom. He went down last season with West Brom. He was fantastic. He was he was one of their best players. I'm sure they could have got him for less than what they paid for Aaron Ramsdale.
They would have, his next move, he'll want first team football and he'll want that guaranteed, won't he? He won't want be going to Arsenal to be second choice. He'd be to be told that's his next move has got to be the right move, and I'm not so sure that he would be first choice at Arsenal. Dan?
He sat on the bench for West Brom at the beginning of the season because he was linked to a move to Spurs and apparently turned it down because he said, I'm not going to sit on the bench anywhere. If I'm leaving West Brom, I'm staying here.
There we go. Right.
This is a course of assuming that he's whoever comes in goalkeeper-wise for Arsenal is going to be number 2 because Leno's not exactly set the world aflame.
Who signed him?
Who signed him? I'm not sure, to be honest.
Because wasn't it?
Was it Wenger? Oh, right. Okay. If it's Arteta that signed him, it's going to be.
Was it Emery?
It was either Emery or Wenger. I think it was either right at the end of the Wenger reign or right at the beginning of.
Emery's, I think it was an Emery signing.
Okay. So looking at that game, I mean, we're concentrating on Arsenal, which is a bit unfair, although they were without Lacazette and Aubameyang. But Brentford, first game in the Premier League, 74 years since they were last in the top tier. And they were just skillful, vibrant, lots of energy. And they were just better than Arsenal, weren't they? They wanted it more, it looked like.
But this is what I said on the podcast last week. For people that watch the Football League, this was no shock to anyone that has watched Brentford for the last 2 or 3 seasons. This is what they do against everyone. They tire you out with their constant press, their constant chase, their physicality. I mean, if you talk about physicality, their second goal should never have stood because the Brentford defender is trying to take Bernd Leno's body off him. But the way that Brentford press and just annoy teams with their constant pressure, we knew it was going to happen, and there was no shock that Arsenal fell for it.
For me, this result was completely predictable because, as Dan just said, Brentford will try and bully anyone, whether it's pressing, whether it's fast movement, whatever. And Arsenal are as soft as a Victoria sponge. You can bully them and you can get away with it. And you know straight away, whoever plays Arsenal this season, they know that they can just bully them and basically run through them if they don't have to run around them.
It depends who's making the Victoria sponge out, how soft it is, if I'm perfectly honest with you. It's not an easy thing to make, I've got to tell you from personal experience. But Thomas Frank has done a cracking job there because under Mark Warburton those years ago, they looked like they were doing it. And then I think they had Dean Smith, then he went. But Thomas Frank's come in and he's done a great job. And at the end of the game, I mean, there's a video out there which is amazing. There's a young lad who's had some problems. And he featured in the club's pre-match video and bits and bobs, and he's featured here and there. But Thomas Frank went and found him at the end of the game, and that photograph, the other photograph, was the old fella in tears, who could probably just about remember the last time they were in the top tier. And when you see that sort of emotion, that's got to be what football's all about, isn't it? It's just that raw emotion, that overjoyed kid, and that pensioner, that old fella. Who's seen it all at Brentford. Suddenly he's in a brand new stadium watching his team, and they've just beaten Arsenal in their first ever game in the Premier League. That's just marvellous. Ryan.
It is. It is definitely what football's all about. And I think the thing that Brentford need the massive credit for is, although they've had a business model of selling to come up, what they've managed to do is keep the core of the squad, which keeps the chemistry of the squad. So when they come up, just much in the way Sheffield United did when they first come up, they're a unit rather than just a bunch of footballers like Arsenal are. So you've got the chemistry already in place, and you just need to take out one player and replace it with another player coming in, rather than disrupt the whole chemistry of the team by doing, say, what Aston Villa did in their first season, which was spend about 100 million on about 20 players. And
I don't think you can survive in the Premier League unless you are properly. You can't flourish in the Premier League or in any league unless you are a cohesive team unit with a goal that you all understand and want to achieve, and you're working together. I don't think you'll get anywhere near what you want to achieve if you're not.
If you want proof of that, watch Charlton Athletic so far this season.
Yeah. Let's not dwell on that. Okay, Newcastle West Ham, the last game of that Premier League. Well, Newcastle fans were fairly miserable throughout the summer, and they've got plenty more to be miserable about now, having been turned over by West Ham. Who wants to start on this one?
Yeah, I will. I felt
great game of football.
Yeah, it's a fantastic game of football. I missed most of the first half. I kind of came in towards the back end. I was coming home from a very drunken weekend. I saw Jacob Murphy score, and we were watching a little bit, and I felt Newcastle were actually playing quite well in the first half. They looked quite bright. I thought, Callum, I think we said it when we were talking about Newcastle, Callum Wilson, Alan St-Maximin, if there's going to be two players that are going to keep Newcastle up.
It's those two, isn't it? Yeah.
They're the two. And then in the second half, I don't know what Moyes said to them at half-time, but West Ham came out and showed why they were so good last season.
I would hazard a guess at what Moyes said at half time. I can imagine it wasn't pleasant either.
I think, again, like we spoke about Antonio last week and about how West Ham need a striker, but I actually kind of regret that watching that game. The way he fed, I don't know if you've seen the goal, I'm pretty sure it's his goal. There's a break on the counter-attack. He holds the ball off and gives it to the winger, which I think is Ben Rama, who shoots down the wing, and Antonio's effort to get into the box and finish. I think his energy, the way he plays, is really helpful to that team. And obviously, also, West Ham missed a penalty. I know they scored from the rebound, but they had more chances in the second half. It could have been ugly. And Freddie Woodman did play well. Bless him.
Antonio is one of those blokes who's going to score. You give him a chance. He's 9 times out of 10 he's going to score, isn't he? He's not going to miss. And he's going to bust a gut to get into the box if there's a chance of scoring, which he did at the weekend. Ryan, what do you think?
This game always intrigues me because they're both two teams that you're never quite sure what you're going to get from. You've always got questions over Newcastle defensively, but you've also always got questions over West Ham attacking wise. You're not sure. They seem to have the players at West Ham, but are they going to show up on the day and do it? You're really not too sure who's fit, who's not. I was surprised, but I wasn't surprised by the result, but I was surprised at how strong West Ham looked without Jess Lingard from last season.
Do you think Newcastle made them look that good in the second half? Dan?
No. I think it's a mixture of West Ham showed their real quality from last season. As I said, Ben Rama, Antonio, Fornals, Thomas Souček, which we've seen. The set pieces are really strong. But where I am concerned, if you do look at Newcastle starting 11, I'll go through it quickly. They had Freddie Woodman, Fernandez, Hayden, Clark and Kraft, Almiron, Shelby, Ritchie, Jacob Murphy, Wilson and St-Maximin.
Bits and pieces, isn't it, at the back?
I think there's 2 players there, maybe 3, that are Premier League footballers.
Bits and pieces players, really, Newcastle, aren't they? Journeyman players who can get away with it, but you don't want a team with 8 or 9 of them in it, do you, really?
Yeah. And Newcastle needed a goal when they brought on Joe Linton. That's not going to get you a goal.
That's like bringing Ben Watson on when you need to get a goal, isn't it, really, for Charlton?
I don't want to talk about it.
I didn't think you would. Ryan?
Yeah, like I said, I think Dan's done it. I think there is talent in that West Ham side. I think there's a lack of talent in the Newcastle side. I know they've signed Joe Willock to bring him back in, but unfortunately, this is the downside of an owner who wants to spend the bare minimum to get the bare minimum before he can sell on.
I think we talk often about the core, and I think, Ryan, you said it earlier about how a team needs a core. I'm a big John Joe Shelby fan, plainly because of just where he's come from. But him, Almiron, with Hayden and Fernandez as centre-backs and Kieran Clark, that fills no one with confidence, does it? You hear those 5 names as your core and you're not confident that you're going to go out and dominate a game. Kieran Clark has been in the Premier League for years and has never
set the ball on fire.
Almiron, Shelby.
To be honest, sorry, let me just say, to be honest, when Dan mentioned the other week about Newcastle going down, I didn't really think too much about it. I thought, yeah, they'll be there or thereabouts. Having just read that team sheet, God, that really does scream relegation. So, Dan, I think we'll have to watch that one, and I might have to convert my opinion.
I do like a good rumour. I do like a good rumour, and West Ham would be a rumour to be in for Chelsea defender Kurt Zouma. But Newcastle boss, Steve Bruce, is after Leicester's Hamza Chowdhury on loan. What do you make of those sort of moves?
Dear Lord. Well, I think Zouma's a
that says it all. Yeah, Zouma, not a bad
Zouma,
Premier League.
I don't have a problem with Zouma because I think that's probably where you could say West Ham are maybe at their weakest. Craig Dawson, Issa Diop, and Ogbonna, and I don't think, to my recollection, they have any other defenders.
Yeah.
And then their backup right back is Ryan Friedrichs. Zouma can play out there. The Hamza Chowdhury one, every time I see him, he's a walking red card.
Yeah, he makes Darren Pratley look quiet and shy and retiring.
I miss him every day.
Yeah, I thought you might. The other thing is, we saw Tammy Abraham go to Roma yesterday for £40 million. There was talk about teams like Tottenham, and he's never going to go to Tottenham, that's for sure. That's not going to happen. But West Ham, they were linked with him for a while. Have they missed a trick there, do you think? £40 million for Tammy Abraham. Ryan, what do you think?
I think anybody in the Premier League who isn't a top 4 side has missed a trick in letting Tammy Abrahams go. I think his track record is good enough to warrant, let's be honest, in the modern day game, 34 to 40 million for a young upcoming English striker with a decent goal scoring record is not a lot of money. I think it's a massive... He should have gone to Tottenham. Tottenham fans apparently want him. I've listened to a lot of Talk Sport and stuff, and they've rung in and said we want him. Just sorry, going back to the Chowdhury one, that one is a bit of a shocker. He reminds me of a young Fellaini, of all the arms and elbows and hair, and a walking red card. And Zouma, I think, will actually be a good sign-in for West Ham. I think Zouma needs a move where he can become a regular and get a couple of seasons under his belt, and I think he's a good talented player.
I have a feeling that Chelsea would have said to Tammy, you can go where you want as long as it's not in England. We're not going to sell you to another Premier League club. Because, I mean, it's the money. Because also they're not going to sell him for £40 million to a British club who's going to score goals.
Okay, right. Let's. So Newcastle, West Ham, done and dusted. Let's look at the fixtures for next week, and I'll read them out on the Saturday.
Sorry.
Yes, go on.
Can I just jump back in on the Tammy Abrahams thing? I will say, I think Chelsea have been very clever in inserting a buyback clause for the future, because, it's rumoured to be, I think it's supposed to be £68 million buyback. I think that's a very smart bit of business, because if they do what they normally do and sack the manager after a year or two, they can bring him back if he's done very well, and they can reintegrate him back into the club.
What did they sell Lukaku for originally? And well, they bought him 97 million. Yeah, that's what I think. Well, they've done it. Once bitten. Once bitten, twice shy. Let's look ahead to next weekend. Liverpool, Burnley. I think there's only one winner there at Anfield, really, isn't there? What do we think?
Yes.
Briefly.
Yeah. Bit of walk in the park for Liverpool, really.
I'm going to move on to Aston Villa, Newcastle. Now, Newcastle, bad start to the season. How's their... They need their home form to be right, don't they, Newcastle? And so do Villa. If you're going to stay up, your home form's got to be half decent. So Villa, first game at home of the season, will be looking to get off to a flyer at home. Newcastle will be looking. Newcastle, I suspect, from this game would take a draw, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I think they'll take anything they can. When you're at the bottom of the league, isn't it? It's a case of win your home games and pick up what you can on the road. This will be one of the games that they'll want to take something.
Judging by what the team sheet that Dan read out, if they don't improve their defence very quickly, I think this could be a battering for Newcastle. All it takes is for the front three to click, and I don't think they, as Dan said earlier, when you look at their options at Aston Villa for the front three, and then you see Ashley Young and who was the other one? El Ghazi, is it?
El Ghazi, yeah.
If they're starting ahead of Traore and Bailey, then you've got to wonder what Aston Villa are going to do. Bearing in mind, Aston Villa did go down. I think it was 3-0 down and come back 3-2. I think if you put the best front options that Aston Villa have got against Newcastle, I think they're going to tear them apart.
Okay. The next game down at Sellout Park, Crystal Palace versus Brentford. Now, I know what I hope for, but what do you think Palace's chances? Brentford are going to be so up for this game, aren't they?
Selhurst Park, Palace they're just good at Selhurst Park, aren't they? But I still think Brentford have a decent chance to get points, but Palace are normally better at Selhurst than they are away. I think I've put a draw on my Super 6, so I'll go with that.
Oh, well, he's giving away Super 6. Ryan, what do you think?
I think it's another Brentford win for me.
I'd like that, but I can see Palace winning or score a draw.
I can't.
Leeds versus Everton. Leeds need to bounce back, and Everton not anything as good as Man United. For my money, I think Leeds will probably edge this one. What do we think, lads?
Yeah, I think another bit like Palace. Ellen Road is fortress for Leeds, isn't it? They've got a good record. Even last year, they had a good record at Ellen Road. I wouldn't be shocked to see them walk away. I'd say a draw, but I wouldn't be shocked to see Leeds win.
Can I just tell you, I've had one of the most terrifying moments of my life at Ellen Road. I was commentating on Charlton versus Leeds, and Charlton went and scored, which was a good thing from where I was sitting. But sitting to my left, 3 seats down, was Norman Hunter, known as Bite Your Legs Norman Hunter, who gave me a look when Terry and I celebrated the goal. And then with 5 minutes to go, Ben Hamer fell over and saved a penalty. And we won 1-0. And at the moment, at the time that the penalty was saved, I was on commentary, went absolutely ballistic. I was up and down, jumping up and down. If looks could kill, Norman Hunter was 2-footing me from about 20 yards away. It was terrifying. He was fine with me after the game, but he gave me some absolute evils during the game. Not pleasant. So, yes, Ryan, sorry, you want to come in?
Leeds versus Everton, I reckon that's going to be a draw. I think Leeds are going to play it safe just to try and get over that Tonkin that they've just suffered. And Everton are very hit and miss, so I'd call that a draw.
I've got that down as a Leeds because I think they're going to come out of the blocks and they're going to blow in the early part of the game. I think they're going to blow Everton away, maybe 2 up by half time, and I think it's down to whether Everton have got the cojones to come back into it. Cojones. Right, next one is here we go. Man City versus Norwich City. Well, surely is it not a question of how many? No, Ryan doesn't think so. Dan seems to think that there's going to be a bit of a slapping going on here.
I think it will be a Man City win. I'm not sure it's going to be a complete and utter Tonkin because judging by their first performance and their lack of a recognised striker, I think they're going to have problems putting the ball in the back of the net consistently this season.
Probably need to buy Harry Kane then, don't they?
Yep.
Cool. I think Man City will win this one at a canter. I think they'll outplay them, and I think they'll get a couple of early goals, and I think Norwich will just be Norwich and collapse into a heap and sit in the corner and ask for mum. Really,
I think it all depends on if Norwich can hold. I still think Man City win regardless.
If it's 0-0 at half time
in the first 10 minutes,
game over.
If Man City are 1-0 up 10 seconds, it's going to be
game over. Yeah, and they'll be passing the ball backwards and shouting "Ole," won't they? It'll be embarrassing, I think, if they get the early goal. If they can get the early goal, and they've got players, to be honest, that can do that. So,
well, all right. The one thing we didn't mention about Man City, Tottenham, that we'll have today is Kevin De Bruyne will start for Man City. And they look dramatically better when he came on the pitch. So if he starts, Norwich aren't going to deal with him, are they?
No. Brighton versus Watford. Now, this is one that Brighton got off to a cracking start, beat Burnley. And what I would say is a 6-pointer already at this stage of the season for Brighton and Burnley. Those are the games they've got to win. And this is a game that Brighton have got to win. And I think they'll I've got this down as a draw, score draw myself, I think. Ryan?
I've got it down for a Watford win.
Have you?
Yeah, I think.
Me too.
Give me your reasons.
I think Brighton play very nice football with very little end product. I don't think they score
just
more
pretty
than
boys?
one goal a game. Yeah, I don't think they can score more than one goal a game. I don't think they've got the striking options. As much as I love,
Well, they scored. Hang on, hold on. They scored 2 last week
against Burnley.
Yeah, but that's very rare. And the way Watford have started the season, I think they'll be well up for it, and they look like they've got plenty of pace in attack, and I think they can have them.
So you two are both going for a Watford win, Dan?
Yeah, I just don't. I don't see Brighton's defence being able to cope with the pace.
Okay.
Shane Duffy, Lewis Dunk, Adam Webster against Ismail Assar, Emmanuel Dennis.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, could get ugly.
Sunday's games: Southampton versus Manchester United. Depends what kit Man United are wearing, isn't it? Really? Is it not at Southampton? If they're wearing the wrong colour kit, it could all go wrong. Dan, you can go first on this one.
This is a fixture that every time I swear every time Southampton play Man United, Southampton go into half-time winning, and Man United always seem to come back and win it. When it's at St Mary's, it seems to happen. It happened last year. Southampton were winning. Cavani came on and blew Southampton apart. I think Man United still win it. And to be honest, with no Danny Ings for Southampton, I could see it being quite comfortable.
And the thing for Southampton is there's a bit of talk going on about James Ward-Prowse being eyed up by a few clubs at the moment. That would be a disaster.
Just signed a 5-year deal, so that's over with.
No, that means nothing. It's just a piece of paper. He signed a 5-year deal. Does that mean the club will get more money for him? If a big
Kane signed a 6-year deal,
if a big club comes in for him, you never know. But anyway, yeah. So, what, Ryan? Your opinion on Southampton Man United?
I think it's going to be a Man United win. I don't expect it to be as convincing as it was against Leeds, but I think it will be a comfortable win.
Okay, I predict that a Southampton player will get sent off because that normally happens, doesn't it, in these games? Wolves versus Spurs up at the Tottenham boss going back so quick. Who wants to take us? Who wants to go with that one first? Dan?
I'll go with it. I'm waiting for someone on radio or TV to play them. Well, Spurs have been in midweek action because I believe they're playing right now. But none of the 11 that started the game against City have travelled, so they'll be fine.
Yeah,
and I think they'll beat Wolves as well.
Will Harry Kane play? There's a bit of talk going on that he might be in or around the squad. You don't think he will?
I'd be shocked.
Ryan?
I'd be shocked if he plays for Spurs.
I think it'll be a Spurs win. I think they looked very solid and very fluid attacking against City. Wolves, I did say in my preview that I was worried for them. They lost their opening game. I could see them losing this. In terms of will Harry Kane play for Tottenham, I don't believe he will, and I don't think he will until the transfer window closes, if I'm honest.
I don't think he will again. I'll put that right here and now. Okay. And so you're going for a Spurs win in that game, yes?
Yep.
Yes.
The 4:30 kickoff on Sunday. Here we go. I've got a sneaking suspicion. Arsenal versus Chelsea. Arsenal will lift their game, surely in the London derby, but it won't be enough because
I think we've seen Arsenal Chelsea enough to know that these games are always tight, regardless of the form of either team. Arsenal seem to bring themselves up for the game against Chelsea, but Chelsea have too much power, and I think we'll beat them. I think Arsenal will give them a go. They're not going to have Lacazette or Aubameyang because they've both got the pandemic flu. Don't want to use the word that YouTube doesn't like, but they've both got that horrible disease, well, not disease, problem
issue.
So they're going to be out. So yeah, it'll be Chelsea's win. I expect Arsenal to play a lot better though.
We are seeing quite a few players struggling with the after effects of the issue, which we cannot, the Voldemort of illnesses. I mean, even down at Charlton, Gilby at the moment is struggling to get back in because it affects the respiratory system. For an athlete, that's I'm quoting Nigel Adkins, and he would know because it affects the respiratory system, and so it will take a lot out of an athlete. Ryan, what do you think of this game?
Arsenal versus Chelsea, I predict a complete and utter whooping. I think Chelsea are going to blow Arsenal out of the water. If Lukaku to come on half time and just rip them apart.
I think if Chelsea score first and early, I think it could be a long afternoon for How long do you give Mikel Arteta if they don't get, you know, if they results go against them in the first few? Because Arsenal TV will be all over them, won't they? I mean, that's a joy, Arsenal TV, isn't it? That's one of the life.
I don't trust their. I think their start to the season is going to give him longer than he should have. Obviously, they've got Chelsea, and I think they've got Man City, and then they've got Norwich, and then I think it's Spurs.
Yeah.
So I think he'll be given that period of football.
And if he hasn't got any results, what happens?
I think they'll keep him. I think he needs to go on a really bad stretch losing again, because their excuse will be Man City are a good side, Spurs are a good side. The fans already want him out.
He'll be really popular with Arsenal TV. Yeah. You will, I'll tell you.
The club, but the thing is, the club have proved they don't give him monkeys. Why is he still here now?
Right,
Could have been gone last season.
I predict he go bye by Christmas. I don't think Mikel Arteta is going to be there much longer, and with managers like Antonio Conte available, if Arsenal's bald and the collection of, shall we call them, people in Edu and whatnot, whatever positions they hold, if they actually decide to grow a pair of balls and actually appoint a proper manager in Antonio Conte, I think we'll see a very quick switch around in terms of where Arsenal are in the league and who they sign in January.
Okay. So that's the Premier League this season. I think next week, should we look at the Football League, some of the leagues there, because they'll have had 3 or 4 games and they'll be settling down. Dan says no because he doesn't want to talk about Charlton.
I don't want to talk about Charlton. We
can look at the Championship. We look at the Charlton. We look at the Championship. Ryan.
So I think we missed a fixture because there's a Monday night fixture.
Is there a Monday night game?
It's West Ham Leicester.
Oh yeah. Sorry, yeah. I'll cut that round.
Where?
West Ham.
Where?
West Ham. 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock at West Ham, and I will call it now as I'm talking. I predict a draw. I think West Ham have started well, and I think Leicester are Leicester. I think I'm going for a draw.
I think Vardy will pop up with a late winner, and there'll be a bit of shithousery.
I think 0-0, but a Vardy mistake
2-1. 2-1. Vardy will score a winner. 2-1. I'm thinking.
Controversial opinion for you here. Go with it or not.
Here we go.
I no longer think that Vardy's the main man. I think the one to watch is Iheanacho. I think he's come on leaps and bounds the last 2 seasons, and I think he's replaced Vardy as the goal threat.
We shall start
last week.
I think we'll see as the season progresses, but I think Brendan loves Vardy like he loved Gerrard.
Yeah, but he's 34.
He doesn't care about that.
He's running out.
He still puts the balls in the net.
Hold on. You're quite happy to pay for a 33-year-old Robert Lewandowski. Give me strength. He's 34.
No, that was me.
No, was it you? That was me. That was not me.
All right. Anyway,
to be fair to Jamie Vardy scored last week, so I still think he's going to score goals. He still scored well over 15 goals a season for the last 6.
Do you know what?
Slowing down
absolutely detested him when he played against Charlton for Leicester. I thought he was like, I described him. I described him as like a wasp in commentary. I'm saying, who is this fella Vardy? He's like a wasp. You want to slap him down and get, and little did I know, but this was like, this is League One, might have been League One, just so Championship.
No, Championship.
Yeah, and I had no idea what lay in store, but he's a pest. He's a little pest.
They had Harry Kane on the bench.
And then what he does is he winds the life out of the opposition supporters up. I mean, you saw the way he celebrated the goal in front of the opposition's fans. He loves a bit of the old shithousery. I think he's great.
I think he thrives on it as well. I think he does it because it motivates him to play even better than he does. I think he's one of those players you'd want to punch at halftime.
He's one of those players, if he's not in your team, you will want to punch him. But if he's in your team, you're going to love him.
He reminds me a lot of, from Charlton fans' perspective, of if you do him and you give him rubbish,
stop. Can you?
Because he's scoring.
Can you say that again? Because you broke up again.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say, with Jamie Vardy, he reminds me a lot of, Charlton fans would know, Lyle Taylor. Because if you shout him, you boo him, good luck. Because he's scoring twice. Because he loves it. I always remember Luton giving Taylor all kinds of jip, and Taylor was like, "Right, I'm having you now." And it's the same with Vardy.
There are lots of players out there that thrive on that. You look at if you read Graham Souness's autobiography, any of the players that played for the Liverpool side in the late 70s, early 80s, They loved the European away game when everyone was baying for their blood. The more vicious the atmosphere, the more they enjoyed it. They just passed the ball amongst themselves and shut the crowd up by just playing football. Ryan.
As a Man United fan, Jamie Vardy's attitude is something I wish Anthony Martial had. Because Anthony Martial looks like he doesn't care about football. I'm sure he probably does, but it just doesn't appear like he's trying that hard most of the time. If you get some of that fire from Jamie Vardy into Anthony Martial, I think it'd probably be worth the money we actually paid for.
I have to say, there are not many players that cross that white line and don't give it all. It just depends on their character. And if you ever watch Chris Waddle when he's playing league games or when he's pomp, he didn't look like he was an athlete at all. He didn't look like he gave a dustman's fart about anything that was going on. Yet he was one of the best players. One of the best players I've seen. It was superb for Spurs.
Win the massives.
And Gary Lineker signed for Spurs on the basis that Chris Waddle was going to be there. Lineker signed on the Monday. Waddle went to Marseille on the Friday. And he went to Marseille and he absolutely bossed it. And he just looked like a player that didn't give a toss. I've seen countless players, but I don't think you should look at some players' demeanour and think they don't give a toss. You're not going to be at that level unless you give a toss. Whether or not you're good enough is a different thing with Martial. And I think we discussed that.
You see with Martial often, he sulks. And then he shuts up for the rest of the game because he's too busy sulking. And then you can see that he doesn't bother running because he's walking around sulking.
Well, then, if I'm his manager, I don't play him again. Because
that's why he sits on the bench.
And I wouldn't even think about bringing him on. I'd say I'd get him out of the club. But that's not the sort of character you want, is it? Surely. So until next week, thanks very much, Dan. Where can they find us?
So we have the email address, which is footballfunderspod@gmail.com. We have a Facebook group, which Ryan, is it Football Funders Podcast?
It is indeed. It's a Facebook page. Go and give it a like.
And our Twitter is FBall Funders, just FBall Funders, not football, because it wasn't available. So just FBall Funders.
And of course, you can download the podcast. You can listen to it via YouTube, and of course, it's all over Apple, Google, everywhere where you normally get your pods from. Until next time, thanks very much, Ryan.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan.
Have a good time.
Thanks very much for tuning in, and we'll see you again. If you've got any questions or you want to raise a point, or if you disagree with us any way, more than happy to hear from you. Or if you've got something you want us to discuss, fire away. We're more than happy to engage with it. See you later. Ta-ra.